First, let's meet Glenda Austin, Willis composer, arranger, and pianist from Joplin, Missouri. She will be introducing some really fun pop duets that we hope will appeal to you and your students. Hello, Glenda. How are you? Excellent. Good to have you here. But before Glenda presents, I'm excited to introduce you to two new names to the Hal Leonard composer roster. They are both from the country of South Africa, population 60 million, and known to many of us as the land of Nelson Mandela and maybe Trevor Noah for those of you who like comedy. And they are the co-authors of the new collection of South African folk songs. Let's first meet James Wilding, composer and pianist, and professor of composition at the University of Akron. Hello, Dr. Wilding. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Hi, Charmaine.
Good to have you. And finally, Nkululeko Zungu, a composer and teacher who just began his doctoral degree at the University of Georgia. Hello, Nkululeko.
Hello, Charmaine.
It's good to have you here. And I know you just went to South Africa, so we hope to hear some stories maybe from your trip.
Okay.
So welcome everyone, and let's have James and Nkululeko take it away.
Sanbonani Molweni, Goeiemiddag, and Hazit. Those are some of the ways that we greet each other in my home country, South Africa. I would like to extend the welcome that Charmaine gave to everyone joining us today. James and I are so honored and thankful to have an opportunity to share with you the beautifully diverse nation that is South Africa. What a privilege to have this nation featured in the collection series at Hal Leonard. Almost all 11 cultures are featured across the 24 pieces in this book. This morning, we are happy, or this afternoon, or this evening, wherever you're coming from, we are happy to share with you a few of those pieces. We will start with some early intermediate pieces.
Okay, so the first piece is from the Afrikaner culture. It's called Hulle sê daar's 'n man in die maan, which means they say there's a man in the moon. And this is a piece that comes from a large collection called the Afrikaans Songboek, or Songbook, and that is about 400 songs. And after the opening line, they say there's a man in the moon, it goes on to say, and I'd really like to go there with my hat and my scarf and visit him for a little while.
It's a wonderful example of how music is governed by the text in the song. The music seems simple, as you can see by the sheet music, but the complexity actually lies in the beautiful phrasing that the early intermediate pianist will be required to do. The long phrase of music encourages this lullaby feel and is a beautiful start to this book. So let's take to the first piece in the South African folk songs collection. They say there's a man in the moon, arranged by James Wilding. The next piece we'd like to share with you today is I Have a Sweetheart in Durban, arranged by yours truly. And this piece is taken from the song Dinesipona no Sam Etekwini in Xhosa. And the song is a wonderful example of the joy that is seen and heard in African choirs. The song sings about a loved one in the city of Durban in South Africa. And commonly, choirs create their own stylistic dances to depict this joy of the lyrics. With the original song, the vibrance and excitement was in the swing rhythms used. But for this level of playing, I had to adapt this in my writing to simple and straight. I was worried that the energy would be lost. However, this melody is so catchy and vibrant by itself that it's still enjoyable with this adapted rhythm.
You'll notice that the left hand goes over the right hand a couple of times. I loved doing that when I was a student. I can remember the Bach B flat partita, the jig. It was just such an amazing thing to do. You might think that this is a later pedagogy, but I think because the arrangement is kept simple in many other ways, the student gets to learn this technique in a nice, comfortable setting. Another great thing about this piece for teaching is the call and response concept in music, which is very common in choirs, and especially in African choirs. And if the child can imagine, or the student can imagine, a single voice giving the call and then a group of people with the response, I think they'll be able to play this one beautifully. So here we have I Have a Sweetheart in Durban, arranged and performed by Nkululeko Zungu.
The next piece is titled What Have We Done? And it's taken from the struggle song Senzeni Na. When we speak of South Africa, we cannot do so without including the songs used during apartheid. And apartheid was the oppressive system that South Africa experienced. And these songs were sung mainly on the streets while people protested the laws of apartheid. In this song, the question of Senzeni Na, translated to English as What Have We Done?, comes from a deep pain that Black men and women felt as they couldn't quite understand the pain that they were experiencing. Usually performed as a hymn, I wanted to maintain its hauntingly beautiful sound, so I opened the piece with a single melody in the higher register of the piano. After the repeating thirds, the traditional hymn starts. Essentially, the entire piece follows a theme and variation form, beginning with the call.
This is a great piece to teach some interesting things about tonality. When the student and teacher first look at the key signature, they'll see that it's 3 sharps, so that's A major. But then they'll notice a whole lot of G naturals in the piece, and the student might say, oh, well, are we going into D major? That would be a logical thing to presume. But we're not really. The piece never really goes into D major. Those G naturals are used more as expressive sound than to modulate. So it would be a great thing if you teach this piece for the student to go through and circle all the G naturals. Well, actually they don't have to because they're very obvious there. But to circle the G sharps because they're not obvious. The sharp's not next to the note, it's in the key signature. But it would be nice to circle them, and then they can see and really hear the difference as they play, the chords that have the G natural versus those that have the G sharp. So here we have, let's have a listen. What have we done? Arranged and performed by Nkululeko Zungu. That's definitely one of my favorites in the collection. Now we go to the Cape Malay people and their song, which is called Here Comes the Alibama, or Daar Kom die Alibama in Afrikaans. The Malays came from the east, but they formed a big community in the Cape area, and that community thrives today, and this is one of their most popular songs. Now, a lot of people ask, what does it mean? Here comes the Alibama. No one really knows. What we do know is that there was a Confederate warship called the CSS Alabama from the state of Alabama, and it came during the time of the Civil War, and it raided trade ships from the Union. And of course, the people in South Africa who were slave owners would have perhaps rejoiced and said, oh, here comes the Alabama. They were quite pleased about it. But the next line in the music, or the next line of lyrics, doesn't actually support that theory. The next line is, girl, the reed bed will be made. So there's another legend, which is that there was another ship, and there actually was this other ship called the Alibama, but spelled with an I there instead of an A, A-L-I. And that one was a South African ship that just brought stuff to Cape Town, and it brought reed, and this reed was used to make bed for the Malay brides. So I like that one the best because I can imagine the wedding party sitting in the harbor, seeing this ship coming in the distance and thinking about how nice the wedding's going to be and saying, okay, here comes the Alibama.
If you look at the music, at the sheet music in front of you, you will see that this piece uses a lot of staccato Alberti bass accompaniment figures that students and teachers should be mindful of. The tendency is to play this type of accompaniment figure loudly and therefore lose the melody in the right hand. The students can expect to work on their delicate touch to ensure that the accompaniment figure does not swallow the beautiful melody in the right hand. So let us take a listen to Daar Kom die Alibama. The next piece we'll share with you is a piece culture, Kwakupuka Mapudali, and shares a fairy tale of a character named Kalina, who is swept away in a thunderous storm. The original song is energetic, with wide intervals in the melody, but I wanted to take an opportunity to write a song or a piece for students to sort of show off to their friends at recitals or performances. And so I took the dramatic approach. The drama of the song is inspired by the storyline. And so you'll hear a lot of use in the lower register of the piano, a lot of accented staccatos and tremolos and trills, not tremolos, trills. And this is musically showing off the thunders and the storms. And I want students to sort of enjoy it while they perform at the recitals.
Yeah, this is a great fun piece to play. I'm actually going to be the one that ends up playing it, although it's Nkuruleko's arrangement. It's another interesting one that brings in tonality. When the student looks at the opening key signature, they'll see 3 flats. Okay, it'll be C minor, fine. Then we go along and it changes to 1 flat, D minor, then 1 sharp, E minor, but then the piece ends. And the student might turn to the teacher and say, well, aren't pieces supposed to end in the same key that they begin? Well, The interesting thing is, in this case, it's illustrating what a choir does when it sings, starting off in a relaxed way, and if it's not got a fixed pitch instrument to go with, it gets a little bit higher as people get more into it and they get more excited. And what African choirs actually do sometimes is do this on purpose, particularly with a song like this, which is about storm. They're going to want to get more and more excited as they go. Now, of course, a choir does that pitch rise gradually. On a piano, what we've done is take it in steps. So C minor, then up to D minor, then up to E minor. Let's have a listen to The Clouds, They Thunder. Now we go to the northeast of South Africa for the Swati people who live also in neighboring Eswatini. And this piece is called Come Out of Your Cave, Nkofula. Now we took this from an old field recording. And the challenge when doing that is to make a difference between what is done as an individual expression on that field recording and what we feel is a very old song that might go back generations and generations. And the essence, if you like, that I felt could be distilled from this one was a very interesting harmonic shift in the key of F minor, which you'll hear as we play along. The Swati people do live in villages, but in those days, they had caves up on the mountains that they used to go to as refuge from an enemy or from the weather. And you could imagine maybe one group sitting in a cave, calling out perhaps softly across the mist to another group in another cave, saying, "Come, join us in our cave."
This piece is actually very amazing in that it's an opportunity for students to work on the tremolo effect at such an early stage. The tremolo, as many of you may know, is very unusual in that it's mostly effectively written for a string player, but commonly it is written for pianists, and we have to, as effectively as possible, play the tremolo. So it's wonderful to have this at this stage in their development, to start getting familiar with it in a very mysterious piece that a lot of students, I'm sure, will enjoy. So let's take a listen to Come Out of Your Cave, Nkofula.
From that very peaceful, mysterious piece, we now go to one that's full of energy. It's actually a dance, but we think of it as a folk song because you could be singing while this dance takes place. It's from the Tsonga people, also in the northeast of South Africa, and they also live in Mozambique. Now, this is another one of these songs that is taken from an old field recording where we try and distill the essence of what it might have been for hundreds of years before that. And for me, the essence in this was rhythm. And as you can see there, or as you see in a moment, it's an 11/8 rhythm. And you might say to yourself, what is 11/8 doing in an intermediate book? Well, of course, 11/8 is asymmetrical. You never quite know where the accents are going to be within the measure. But once you've got onto the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth measures, and you realize that the accents are falling in the same place every time, it aids the listener, and of course it aids the student. And so this piece it's going to be quite virtuosic. It'll be for the student that really wants to progress and have something to show off with. But it's going to be a piece that by the end, when you hear it, you'll feel the asymmetry of the initial 11/8 measure is actually becoming symmetrical because you've heard it so many times.
So this piece is one of my favorite pieces, and it does. It's probably one of the most challenging pieces in the set of challenging pieces. Actually, the last three were the late intermediate sort of level pieces, but Masese is probably the most challenging and exciting of the three. Not only has it got rhythmic challenge, but the students will be required to maintain a constant fifth in both hands. But James has arranged it so wonderfully that students will be guided by the swelling dynamics to guide the listener through this energetic dance. So let's take a listen to Masese. Nice. The final piece we'll be sharing with you today is titled God Bless Africa, and it is the national anthem of South Africa. And this anthem, in its structure and the way it came about, sort of tells the story of South Africa. This anthem serves a significant prayer for many in South Africa, hence why I titled the piece God Bless Africa, which is the direct translation of Nkosi Sikelel' iAfrika, which I'll explain later. This pseudo title of God Bless Africa for our anthem is recognized by many in South Africa and often confused as the official title of the anthem. Before 94, the country recognized two anthems, and those were Nkosi Sikelel' iAfrika by Enoch Sontonga and Die Stem van South Africa by C.J. Langenwerven. After 94, Nelson Mandela, which was our first Black president of South Africa, announced the combining of these two anthems to create what is the official anthem, which is entitled the National Anthem of South Africa. Because of this, we have an anthem that captures the wonderful variety that our nation holds, having 5 of the 11 official languages represented across the 4 stanza anthem. So stanza 1 is isiXhosa, isiZulu, stanza 2 is Sesotho, stanza 3 is Afrikaans, and stanza 4 is sung in English. The 4th stanza was commissioned by Nelson Mandela as an addition to the combination of the two anthems and was written by Jean Zadel Rudolph in 1995.
2 different songs in 5 different languages. Let's take a listen to the national anthem of South Africa. We hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to the South African Folk Songs collection. Now it's back to Charmaine for a quick giveaway.
Thank you, James and Nkululeko, for such an informative session about South African folk songs and music. I do want to emphasize that the notes they wrote for each folk song are especially eye-opening and will greatly assist you and your student about what each piece is about. And also, just a quick note that this is the 6th book in the Hal Leonard Folk Songs collection, as you see on screen, and the entire series is part of the special today. Okay, so now let's switch to something lighter. We believe that duets greatly enhance the piano learning experience, so Glenda Austin is here to tell you about some fun ones from Willis Music. And just a brief note to everyone watching that this section is a re-recording of the original webinar on August 18. Unfortunately, there were several audio issues that were out of our control, so Glenda kindly consented to another sit down with us. Glenda, you are on for take 2.
Hello, Charmaine and Amy, and any teachers, students watching. I am happy to be back. As Charmaine said, this is take 2. We kind of had a little challenge, but I think we've worked it out, and we so wanted you to be able to hear these duets. This is a collection of 3 duet books, and I know you'll be seeing these covers later with Amy. Easy Pop, Easy Broadway, and Easy Classics. They are easy to mid-intermediate. And the first book we're going to feature are the Easy Pop duets. There you go. And you're going to hear in just a minute myself playing with my duet partner, Old Town Road. Now, I don't know if all the teachers readily know that by its title, but you will know it when you hear it. All the kids know this song by Lil Nas X. And a few months ago, I had my niece over here. She was 12, and I started playing a little bit, and she just broke into song and dance and knew every word. And it kind of surprised me. She goes, everybody knows Old Town Road. So here's my arrangement on video of Lil Nas X, Old Town Road. But first, we have a short clip that we found on YouTube of a school, an elementary school, where Lil Nas X made an appearance at an assembly. And we want you to see the excitement of these students when he appeared and they started singing his song, Old Town Road. So here's a clip of that first. That always excites me. I used to teach elementary music, and I've seen kids in student assemblies not go quite that crazy, but it's certainly an electrifying environment. Now we're going to go to the video of my arrangement as a duet of Old Town Road. So let's watch and hear this video. There you have it, my arrangement. And I will introduce my duet partner after the next duet so you can see him. You just saw the fingers. We're going to the easy Broadway duets, again, early to mid intermediate level. And everybody, of course, loves Broadway. The first arrangement is called One. And it's from chorus line one, singular sensation. Of note, I arranged this, and I'm just going to say the harmonies and the chord progressions of this particular tune, they are very catchy, but they were a little tricky when I got into arranging it. I had never really played this song or had my kids sing it in choral groups. So I kind of thought I knew it, but boy, when I got into the middle section, I had a little struggle with hearing the harmonies. But once I got them and arranged them, they are fun. They are really wonderful harmonies that are different. So this is my arrangement of One, and let's hear that video and see it right now. 2, 3, and... I was tapping my toes. That is one catchy rhythmic motive and melodic motive. Well, you saw a little bit of my duet partner. You'll see more of him later, but I do want to introduce my friend Marcus Van Dorn. He's a lifelong friend, or for at least many, many years, and he's a terrific accompanist. He plays for a lot of groups in this area, and he was more than willing to come over one Saturday morning and record these duets with me. You'll see him, of course, on the rest of the duets. So I want to give a shout out and thank him so much for doing that. It was much appreciated. Another duet from the Broadway collection is one of the most popular musicals right now. It's been all over the world. It's continuing to be all over the world. It's Wicked. And we chose the song Popular. You're gonna be popular. And it's such a clever song. The words are fun, the rhythm, the melody. It's just a catchy tune that your students will love to play. And I might also throw in that teachers, you'll love to play these as well, because Marcus and I enjoyed playing this so much. So here is the video of Popular from Wicked. And I want to mention Carolyn Miller arranged Popular. I talked with her on the phone a couple days after the workshop, and I told her how much fun it was playing her arrangements. She does a very terrific job arranging music. So that was by Carolyn Miller. Another great song from a very famous musical, an older musical, The Sound of Music. And it, like so many of these musicals, this is worldwide, and it seems like I've read that at this moment, this musical, Sound of Music, is being presented somewhere in the world. It's that popular. It's just global. But one song that you don't often hear other than in the show or hear people sing it is one called I Have Confidence. It's when Maria is going to the Von Trapps to become the governess, and she's a little overwhelmed and a little intimidated about what might be happening and what she might be doing, raising or teaching these children. It's a lovely arrangement by Naoko Ikeda, and I believe we have she playing this with her sister of I Have Confidence from The Sound of Music. And that concludes with the duets from the Broadway collection. We're moving on to the easy classical duets, the Blue Book. And it's exciting when a piece is discovered that you're really not that familiar with. And the next duet we're going to feature is a piece like that. Charmaine heard an article on the NPR radio program about this composer. And she did a little further investigating and came up with this piece called Symphony Concertante. And here is the composer. I've practiced on the pronunciation, Chevalier de Saint-Georges. Chevalier de Saint-Georges. So she did a little, as I said, research and came up with this lovely piece that we have arranged for this book. Eric Baumgartner arranged the duet. It was a lot of fun to play. I did not know it. It has some great opportunities in the music for creating lovely slurs, a lovely phrasing. So there's a lot you can teach in this duet. Not only it's a new piece to many, but a lot of pianistic things that you can point out and work on. So let's listen to the Symphonie Concertante by Chevalier de Saint-Georges. And I also might point out, along with the slur lines, there were plenty of staccatos, the opposite, that you could work with a lot in teaching your musicianship. Another piece I was not familiar with in this collection of the classical duets is a piano trio by Clara Schumann. Of course, we've all heard of Clara Schumann, and we know a little bit about her life. And she was quite an accomplished musician, not just as a performer, but as a composer. Piano Trio in G minor has been arranged for a duet by Melody Bober. It is very pianistic. It lies under the fingers. It's very rewarding to play. So, you know, I also want to mention this is a woman composer, Clara Schumann. It gave me a moment to think about some other women composers, and I came up with, you all have heard of Amy Beach, Lily Boulanger, Fanny Mendelssohn, of course, and Cécile Chaminade. Maybe you can think of a few other women composers, but this piece is certainly worthy for students to learn and to perform. So let's listen to the piano trio in G minor. One more thing about Clara Schumann, if you have not heard her concerto in A minor, it is worth looking up on YouTube. It is a beautiful piece, not terribly long, and very achievable by many of your advanced students. Concerto in A minor, Clara Schumann. We have a duet now that is not in any of these collections, but it's a duet I wrote several years ago called Wistful Waltz. And it was brought to my attention by a teacher quite a while ago that discovered this on YouTube. In the picture you see, Wistful Waltz is in two different arrangements, one as a piano solo in the Lyric Waltzes, the Red Book, and then the green Wistful Waltz, that is the duet. So you can play this two ways. But we saw the duet on YouTube. And when I first heard and saw this duet, I could not have done it better anytime, anywhere, any place. Two lovely young ladies performed this, obviously, on some venue, on a stage. And it's just a stellar performance. I wish I knew who the young ladies were. I wish I knew who the teacher was that posted this and that taught it. It's absolutely perfect in every way. So we're going to see and hear the video of my duet, Wistful Waltz. I wish I knew them so I could personally thank them. If you know them or their teacher, please let us know. It was just a highlight for me to see and hear that. I'm going to send this back to Charmaine. This is my portion. I hope you've enjoyed duets. And Charmaine, back to you.
Thank you so much, Glenda. How fun was that? I enjoyed all of the duets presented. You know, I grew up playing duets with my sister, and I know, Glenda, you did the same. And it's great motivating literature for any piano studio. And just FYI, Chevalier Saint-Georges, Glenda says it so much better, but he was also nicknamed the Black Mozart, and besides being a composer, was also famous for being a fine violinist and a fencer. So just a little trivia there. Okay, well, thank you everyone watching again for being here, and our time has come to an end once again. Hal Leonard and Willis are committed to uplift more voices that have previously not been heard. And one of my favorite quotes is that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. So thank you again so much to James, Nkululeko, and of course, Glenda, for all your wonderful, insightful presentations today. Does anyone have any final thoughts before we say goodbye? Glenda?
Well, I would like to just say in closing, first of all, I want to thank you, Charmaine, our editor. I want to thank Amy behind the scenes doing the tech. I want to also thank Larry Morton, president of Hal Leonard, and Kevin Cranley, president of Willis Music Company. And I know James and NK agree with me. We talked about it. We are all so appreciative for what all you do and what goes on behind the scenes. Last, but certainly not least, you teachers watching, and perhaps some students could be watching this. We want to thank you because, you know, Charmaine, we wouldn't be doing this. Amy, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't have our audience of the teachers and some students. So we certainly thank you for giving your time and your support. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Bye.